Broadcasting from Baltimore, Maryland, this is 5x3 Radio, where strength is for everyone. I'm your host, Emily Sokolinski, owner of 5x3 Training, a strength and conditioning gym in Baltimore, along with my co-host, Rebecca Fishburne, founder of Cornerstone Strength Maryland. Each week, Rebecca and I will discuss the ins and outs of strength training, why there is a no one-size-fits-all approach, and why strength is so important in our daily lives. Thanks for spending some time with us. You're one of my clients. So his program, we're moving along in a good direction, but his program is to help his running. He's not looking for a 500-pound deadlift. So I'm not going to, I'm trying to keep trying to make sure that everything's, working in the right direction for him. And so far, so good. So everyone's individual, of course. It could be that he needs to back off, but as of right now, things are moving along. So it's having that, knowing your client and having that conversation and helping them balance their own training so they understand and you understand what is their priority.
Well, yeah, but like you're saying, you're keeping this part.
I can keep this part.
Yeah, because
sure.
I think this flows nicely and, you should keep this part. But okay. So also helping your client understand how the goals that they might think they have can be sometimes competing goals. So if you have a client who, based on all the questions that you ask and the feedback that you get through their actions, is indicating that something like the 5 times a week martial arts practice is their priority, but in their mind, they still think that they want to get a 500-pound deadlift or squat or whatever, helping them understand that those two goals, pursuing those two goals simultaneously may be counterproductive. They can pursue both of those goals, but they have to do them in different seasons. And that's the thing sometimes that people want everything all at once. And it doesn't always work that way.
Yeah. All right. So I'll do my little spiel and then we can jump into it.
Okay.
Hi, everybody. Welcome back to 5x3 Radio. Rebecca's back with me.
I'm back.
I missed you. Did you listen to the podcast that we did with Sarah?
Emily, I never listened to our podcast. I don't like to hear my own voice.
Well, your voice wasn't on this one, so you could listen to it.
I could listen to that.
So we, our last podcast that just came out was an interview with an athlete, Sarah, who is actually, her coaches are Dawn and Susan up at Arnold Fitness. Online strength and conditioning, Susan's business. So it was a great podcast. She's dealing with EDS, Ehlers-Danlos syndrome, and she was very reluctant to talk to me about it at first, but then she really enjoyed telling her story and really enjoyed talking about it and getting it out and talking it over with her coaches, and she's definitely shared it with everybody. So if you haven't listened to that episode, that just came out a couple weeks ago, check it out. Really good interview with Sarah. And our contest that she participated in, we just had this past Sunday, or rather when this comes out, it'll be June 8th. We raised over $12,000 for Ullman House. So we are way beyond our $100,000 goal that we hit already in 2022. So we had a great turnout. Really fun contest, ran just as smoothly as all the other contests did, and we raised some good money. And I visited the Ullman House Wednesday to drop off sponsorship checks and got a chance to see Charlotte's room again, did a little video of it. I want to send it to the kids. So it's always nice to kind of go and visit the room. Now, that is the room that she did not stay there. The Ullman House was built in 2018. Charlotte died in 2015. So this was a house that was this was an idea that was in the making probably for a few years. And we decided to help raise money for the Ullman House and then dedicate a room at the house in Charlotte's memory. So it is not her room in the sense that she stayed there. She never got a chance to stay at the Ullman House. But it is a room that is dedicated to her. So thank you to everybody who donated and our sponsors, and of course, all the women who competed. So we thought we'd just take some time. It's summer, and we're probably going to have a few episodes during the summer. It's harder to get together because of vacations and such. But Rebecca and I were thinking we talk briefly about summer training and also priorities. And, we sometimes decide that during the summer, we want to spend more time maybe biking or hiking or swimming. How do we balance our strength training with our other activities? And then just in general, how do we balance our lifting with other practices? So
Lifting with our
right,
life.
with lifting with our life. So just in general, how do we find that balance? So I don't know, do we want to start with like summer? Because that's kind of easy since we're already getting close to summer. What are some ideas you give to your clients who are going to go away for like a few weeks? Maybe they're going hiking, maybe they're just going to the beach and they want to keep lifting. Or they want to try a new sport this summer, like pickleball.
You say that, but my kids have been going up to the neighborhood pickleball court like frequently. It's a big
It's
deal
a big
over
deal,
here.
right? And it's a big deal for like I mean, I don't mean this, but the older population, right? I mean, I think it's really like people are getting into it. So if you want to try something like that and you want to spend, let's say, I'm going to do pickleball 4 days a week, but you also want to keep lifting. How do you help somebody find that balance between their lifting schedule and now their new pickleball schedule, let's say?
Yeah. Well, I mean, you were talking about this before in the pre-clip, whatever you called that.
Our pre-clip.
But the idea of like one of the things that a coach can help you do is ask the questions that need to be
Yes.
asked. And so I think it's important to kind of go back and review some of the foundational questions about why you're lifting at various points throughout the year. And maybe your answers are different. And maybe they're different depending on the season, different depending on maybe your goals have changed a little bit. And just sort of like understanding how that all fits together. And so like over the summer, that's a time where often people's schedules change, right? So I mean, I come to this from a background of teaching. So my summer schedule always was very different from my schedule during the regular school
Yes.
year. So for some people, summer might be a time where they're doing increased travel, where they're visiting family, where they're, doing a bunch of different things that might interfere with their training. For other people, summer might be a time where the demands of work are a little bit less and they have more time to devote to their training. And so their training and their goals for what they're doing in the gym, can ratchet up a little bit. So, different people are different and what they do with a different schedule is going to be different. So asking the questions of yourself or having a coach or a friend who's helping you think through those things and just clarifying for yourself, what am I trying to get out of this time?
Right.
And what are my priorities? And it's fine if the priorities are different and they don't have to be the same as they were this time last year. They don't have to be the same as they were 6 months ago, but just reassessing that and then changing your training accordingly and realistically.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that's, I think you're going to, you almost become like a seasonal lifter, right? So for some people, they go away for the whole summer. I've got a client who's going up to Cape Cod. Like they have a place up there. Some people have, vacation homes, or they take a lot of vacations during the summer to visiting family or just, seeing the country if they're traveling, maybe, for a hike or camping. So maybe it's, that about yourself. So your lifting program kind of gets put on a hiatus, but you don't want to lose any of your strength work. So I have a client who she basically just goes to Planet Fitness. I mean, she went to Planet Fitness last year. And I gave her a easy kind of, easy dumbbell program. And she followed that and came back in the fall and picked right back up where she left off and, and got back into her program. So you don't have to necessarily just kind of stop training. You might just maybe configure your training in a different manner to match the priorities that you have, which is vacationing with your family or hiking more or biking more. And you don't have access to a barbell gym, but do you have access to dumbbells? Do you have access to kettlebells? Yes. And you can create a program that way because your priority that summer is this activity, right? Not your lifting. You will stay consistent with your training if you are flexible enough with yourself and know that you can simply modify the training that you have been doing. And that keeps you focused on on the strength training. And then when you return to, home and back to the barbell, well, you might have to take some of the weight down, but that's okay. You have been so consistent, you just fall right back into that same line of training, and you're right back onto a schedule. So I think having that flexibility with yourself, like knowing that you want to do this other activity, but you also want to make sure that your training continues and you don't want to lose just the gains and the strength that you've accrued over the years. But what is your priority? Like being, like you said, being honest with yourself, so that you don't get frustrated when you return and your squat feels kind of shitty, because it is going to feel shitty,
Yeah.
But knowing
Well,
that you'll get back to it, and you had a good time this summer because you did something new and you tried
mhm.
something new. So, if your priority is, I want to continue to make the gains in the gym and get this 405 deadlift, well, then you're going to have to train, right? You can't play pickleball 5 days a week and then think that the once a week, strength training you're going to do is give you that 405 deadlift, unless you're Jesse and you just, or Ross, two of my members who just leave for months on end, come back and squat 405, like, it's just another walk in the park. Um, so yeah, I think it's, as you said, it's really the priority, like being true to yourself as far as like, what do you want to get out of this summer? What do you want to get out of your time, with your family, or your time with your friends, or time by yourself, if that's, if
Yeah.
that's your goal.
Well, and some, different personalities are different, and some people make that adjustment real easily. And some people have a harder time
Yeah.
letting go of the notion that, like, well, I used to be able to squat
Yes.
such weight, or when I did this weight before, it wasn't my intensity day, it was my volume day. What's become of me? And kind of forget that there was an interlude where you got, to experience something different, or you had a different priority, and being okay with that. Like, some people have no problem with that whatsoever, and some people are just really hard on themselves.
Yeah. And you have to be, yeah, that is tough. That is very tough. And that's when you have to have that come to Jesus moment with yourself. I think of like, what is your life? And, what are you lifting for? And, I always said with my own dancing that dancing made me happy. And I like dancing. I didn't live for dancing. Dancing was part of my life. It wasn't my life, right? I enjoyed it. So when I wasn't dancing, I wasn't, my head wasn't in the sand. I wasn't like, depressed because I couldn't do anything. This is a part of my life, and I can step away from it, and then I can come back to it because it has given me so much that I'm able to do these activities. And I think I have to remind people of that all the time, sometimes, even just, summer aside and other activities aside, just in general. Sometimes we get down on ourselves for not being able to do something that we could do a month ago. Maybe because we got sick, maybe because, in one case, one of my members fell and, hurt her knee. So it was hard, and she's older, and she was having a hard time getting back into her training. And she felt really bad about that. And then she started to get back into her training, but then she was doing something. She was running around, going to the library or going to this meeting or going to that meeting. And then she found herself frustrated because her body was tired because of the activities that she had done. And I said to her, "Well, your body's tired because the activities you were doing, but you couldn't have done those activities if you hadn't been doing the strength training." So it's like always kind of coming back to, you can do more because your body is stronger, because your ability to do more has been built up via our working together. So yeah, you're tired because you've been on your feet for 4 hours. When's the last time you were on your feet for 4 hours? Oh, never. Right. And why are you on your feet for 4 hours? Because you can be, but that's tiring. So it's getting people like almost adjusted to this new body that they have, this new, the new activity level that they have, and having to kind of find that balance for them too.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, also, like, I think that's an important point that you're making there too. Like, if it's a new activity, right? Like, if it's a new
Right.
lifter, I think navigating all of this is a little more confusing. For
Absolutely.
instance, you get the notion that you're on an NLP. and you're going to keep adding 2.5 pounds or 5 pounds or whatever, depending on the lift, and that you're just going to keep making progress forever. And if you're still on that LP and you're like, I can't disrupt this. If I disrupt it in any way, I'm going to screw up my gains versus somebody who's gone through the process of lifting for many years and knows that it kind of can ebb and flow and it doesn't necessarily mean the end of the world. You'll just pick up someplace in the neighborhood of where you were lifting, and then you'll just kind of keep working on building from there, and it's okay. Take a deep breath.
Yeah.
I say that from experience.
Right.
Like I've been there, like, yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, but it is
out about going on vacation and, oh my God, I'm not going to get my whatever.
right.
Lift.
Right. Right. And speak of vacation. Yeah. I guess we don't know if we talked about this, but maybe we did talk about this on the podcast that I actually trained on vacation for the very first time.
You mentioned that.
I was like, I'm still astounded I did that. And I would think I will keep doing that if I had the chance, if I had the opportunity, I will.
It's nice.
It was very nice. I got a chance. I got a break for about an hour and a half. And I saw, two shitty gyms that I'm so glad I own the gym that I have because everything's always put away neatly and everything has a place, and and there's equipment there that I can actually use. And so, but it was nice to actually kind of get away and do something different. And I only did it twice, but the 2 times that I did it really made me feel good. I got something in, and when I came back, things didn't feel as rough as before. But it's interesting to work with like clients, who are not used to this, who are still new to this, even after like a year and a half, who are still new to it and are looking back at their notes and going, oh, but this time last year and I'm thinking, can you please not do that? Can you look at what you just did today and what you were able to do? And the fact that you just told me about this trip that you took or this hike that you did, and when were you able to do that 2 years ago? Oh no, I could not even presume to think about doing that. Well, let's think about that and not worry about that number that's in your book, but what you can do now that you always were like, you'd have to cross it off your list instead of checking it off your list, cross it off as in, I can't do it. I'm not able to do it. And now you're checking it off your list as in done, accomplished. Let's think about that. And that's a lot of my older clients, who might get down on themselves for when they've missed things or they're not doing what they used to do, or how come, and you have to kind of talk them up by saying, the reason you're tired is because you spent a whole day walking around, buying, shopping, doing whatever. Could you have done that 3 years ago? Oh no, there's no way I could have done that. And then they stop and they go, oh, I see. Okay, I get it now. I said, yes, that's why. And anything you do differently is going to have, and you do for a long time is going to have an impact on your body. I was talking to Mona. She came down to Baltimore. They're looking at a place down here, kind of like a retirement home. Yeah.
Oh, to move
here. Yeah.
Ah,
so
cool.
we're looking at that, and Liz, her daughter's really excited about that. So I was talking to Mona, and she walked for like 2 hours on Monday. So she texted me. She goes, my legs are so sore. Can we work out on Wednesday? So yesterday we worked out, and she said, I walked for 2 hours. I guess I need to walk more. I said, you do. I said, I've been trying to tell you that you need to get out and walk more. Well, why are my legs so tired? I said, because you don't walk a lot. I said, that's why. I mean, yes, you do this, but you have to, if you're not used to walking for 2 hours, then your legs are going to be sore after 2 hours. When I go on vacation and Diego and I walk in a day, we could hit 20,000 steps in a day. We're beat. My legs are spent. I don't do that on a daily basis. I don't do a forced march every single day like I do on when I'm on vacation with him. So my body's not used to it.
Vacation with Diego sounds so fun.
It can be.
Forced marches.
Forced marches. Yes. Our hikes are never, oh, look at nature. Our hikes are, we're going to hike this faster than anybody. It says it takes 2 hours. We're doing it in 45 minutes. And we do, nothing's leisure with us. But if you're not used to walking 20,000 steps a day, then you're going to be tired. And she said, oh, I didn't think about that. I said, yes, until you're walking 2 hours a day, you're going to be sore. And then after a while, you'll walk 2 hours a day and you're not even going to think twice about it. She goes, oh, I see that. I said, you got to LP your walking. You got to LP anything, right? And we don't do that because we think, oh, it's just walking. So it's little things like that that we don't realize can interfere with our other activities, which leads me into discussing, okay, priorities. So let's talk about that. We kind of mentioned a little bit the summer, doing something new. What about during the year? Okay, or a new client who wants to get stronger, but has an activity that they do maybe 3 to 5 days out of the week.
Yeah, so I mean, basically the same thing. Like we're talking about summer, and maybe there's seasonal activities that a person is involved in, like hiking or camping or
Right,
vacation or whatever. But like, what if it's an activity that's not seasonal, but one in which they're engaged with 12 months out of the
right,
year? Yeah.
right.
So same thing. And sometimes, like you're saying before in the prequel, so sometimes people have in their mind that they want to do both things, right? Like, like the activity, the jujitsu or whatever it is a priority.
Hmm.
But so is the lifting, and
Hmm.
getting strong is super important for the person. That's what they want to do. And they have ideas of maybe what numbers they might want to hit just based on they went on, I don't know, T Nation and looked at some chart of are you strong? And they arbitrarily decided that
No,
they
they're
need to
weak.
squat a certain amount in
Right,
order to be considered strong.
right.
So fine. And so they want to do both things, and they want to do them both at the same time. And then just in talking to the person, like you find out, if their activity, requires practices 5 days a week. Um, that's not really something that's going to work out so well with 3 days a week of
Right,
lifting.
right.
So maybe you need to talk them into a more reasonable view on
Yeah, and I
that.
think that's definitely a conversation that, like, if somebody comes to the gym, if somebody comes to you and says they want to get stronger, but they somehow leave out of the equation in talking to you that they also train 5 days a week cycling, that they
Hmm.
cycle 5 days a week, and their cycling is 3 to 4 hours a day of practice, and they don't tell you that, but because they want to get stronger, and then they're halfway into their training and they're like dying, like their lifts are not going well, and you're wondering like, what's going on? It's not that heavy, and then somehow it comes out that, well, they biked 60 miles the day before, and then you're like, wait a minute, what do you mean you bike 60 miles? Wait a minute, let's talk about this. So ideally, you're the person who's coming to you, and you, the coach. Why are you here? What do you want to do? Why do you want to get stronger? And they say, well, I'm a runner, or I cycle, or I do martial arts 5 days a week, but I want to get stronger for my sport. What do you, as a coach, what do we say when, because I get that as well. How would you approach that person's training then? Or what would you say to them they're like, well, what can you do for me? How's this going to work? How's my training going? What's it going to look like? Well, their priority sounds like is their activity. We're not going to mess with that, right? They're a runner. They're a cyclist. We're not going to tell them you need to stop cycling, you need to stop running and just get stronger. They're not going to do that. But right now, maybe they're off season. They're not good, maybe they do more in the summer or something. We can still find that balance with them, but we have to be honest with them and say, okay, priority is your practice, your sport. Here's what we can do with your lifting. But remember, the activity you do outside of here is going to interfere with the activity that you do in here in the gym. And I always say that to people, whether they're doing some type of like big cycling gig, or their jujitsu 5 days a week, even if they just kind of run or bike for fun on the side. When do they bike? When do they run? And when do they lift? And helping them find that balance so that their sport, their activity, is not going to interfere with their lifting, and also that hopefully the lifting is not going to be too much stress and their practice is kind of going down the toilet. So there's got to be a balance there, and you have to teach that person what that balance is and help them so that they don't kind of go rogue. and decide that they're not getting strong enough or something like that. And they start to up their training program instead of listening to the coach who's like, no, if your priority is this is to complement your activity and your sport, not to override it. If you want to override it, and this is something you were saying in the prequel, if you want to override it, then you've got two competing goals now. You can't have it both ways. You can't run a marathon and take your time down and also get a 600-pound deadlift. I don't see that. I don't see how the two of those can actually really come together in a good way. You'd have to like take off running, like not run and just deadlift and lift if you want that, because that's not going to happen with the running. It's going to totally impact. They're going to be at odds with each other. So that's the conversation that you have to have with your coach, and the coach should have that conversation with you too, because the two can coexist, but the priority, the goal, has to be one or the other, I think. What do you think? What are your thoughts about?
Yeah, I mean, and it's like you're saying, like if somebody's goal is whatever the activity is, and they want to get stronger to support that goal, right? Like stronger compared to where they were before, not stronger compared to some, arbitrary determinant or what somebody else is doing, and sometimes it's like, it's almost like sometimes you can be your own somebody else. Like if you went through a period of time where the only thing that you were focusing on was the lifting and you didn't have other activities added in, and you're trying to compare yourself currently with additional activities to yourself in the past with just an isolated focus on lifting.
Mm-hmm.
Essentially, that's like comparing yourself to somebody else. And so kind of being able to separate that out and be like, okay, well, if that's where I want to go later, I can go back to that goal and put the other activity off to the side. But yeah, like we definitely live in a culture where people want all the things all at once, all the time, and realizing that that's not the way the real world works sometimes is surprising to people.
Yeah, and I think it's a coach's responsibility to help the lifter understand that. I mean, I definitely try to, right off the bat when someone says, I run 5 days a week. I go, okay, when do you run? Like I ask a lot of those questions. I ask a lot about what their activity is like outside of the gym, because I want them to make progress in the gym, and I want that to not interfere with what they're doing with their running. I want their running to improve. I want their biking to improve. And it's always good when you hear that. You're like, oh man, my recovery is so much better. The hills feel so much better. This feels so much better. But I'm very, very conservative when people are coming in and they're like, yeah, I've got a run coming up soon. I have to work with them in the gym and modify their program and change their program so that they're running, because their running has now been upped. So now they're running more. But at the same time, they want to keep training, and I need to make sure that their training is balanced with their running, because I don't want to be the one to interfere, with the program interferes with what they're doing. So helping them understand and asking a lot of questions. How are you feeling? Are you recovering okay? What do we need to do? And the person can say, yeah, I think I need to back off a little bit. Great. I have no problem doing that, because again, your priority is that sport, that activity. I have to be the one to constantly ask questions about how things are moving, because I don't think the person's going to necessarily think that, right? That's not going to pop in their heads, because, oh, I'm just lifting weights. But it's not just lifting weights. So, you have to it's almost like educating the person to ask those questions or to address it with their coach, so that the coach understands and can make the decisions to back off as needed. I met with a new client the other day who trains 5 days a week practice, and it's a martial arts. It's a couple different things. And sometimes it might just be stretching, but it's still the fact that he has to stretch means it's like a dancer or a gymnast, right? That's part of your sport. I'm not going to tell him not to stretch because that's what he needs to do. That's part of his sport. But his strength training has to now complement that. He wants to get stronger. He can feel it in his own body what he needs. Originally, he was training 3 days a week. And I said to him, how often do you practice? Meaning his martial arts. He goes, 5 days a week. I said, so you're doing 5 days a week? He said, yeah, but it's different. It's 3 hours or 5 hours doing it. I'm like, doesn't matter. It's still 5 days a week. And on top of the lifting, 3 days a week. I said, so how are you feeling? He goes, I'm exhausted. I said, well, I would be too. So, I was talking to him. I said, sounds like, I mean, your priority is your sport, your martial arts. He said, yeah, I'm going to Indonesia in August. I said, oh, for the month? He goes, no, for 4 months. I went, oh, okay. He said, but I want to keep lifting. I said, well, okay. So here's a good problem in a sense. How do I make this person stronger? How do I keep him lifting and engaged, but not put interfere with his real focus over, while he's training. So I immediately said to him, well, we're going to drop you down to twice a week. You've been training 3 times a week with your coach, but we're going to drop you down to twice a week because you really need that. You need that time in between to recover from your workouts. And also you're doing 5 days of practice of other things. Oh yeah. Cause I asked him, when did you do it? Do you do it before you're lifting, after you're lifting? Oh, it depends. It was not so much that it was more of just the amount of time he's spending training and also his practice. So we're going to see how that works out. And he seemed very open to that. And I think it's going to be a lot better for him as far as his recovery goes. And he'll probably make better progress because even like about a month and a half into his training, maybe not even a month, his back started bothering him and he had to drop the weight. And this is already on his novice, his LP. We don't really want to be doing that, too far in. So I don't know if the question never came up about his practice or if he never brought it up or the coach didn't ask him. But when I hear someone talking about, they're doing Tai Chi and they're doing this and they're doing that, I'm going to ask them, okay, how much of that are you doing? Like, I want to know all that they're doing that's not lifting related so that I have an idea of what I can do to help them make progress in their training, but also help them succeed in their own, in their practice too. So
Yeah, I think a lot of times people forget that it's not necessarily the lifting in the gym that's making you stronger. It's the recovery time in between sessions where you're rebuilding and getting stronger. And so if you're denying yourself that recovery time because you've got too many lifts and too many practices and too much activity, then, the process of getting stronger is impaired.
Yeah. And it's okay if you decide, if you make a decision to want to start strength training. And I'm thinking of a young man we had as a client a few years ago, back at the old gym, actually. So a good long time ago, almost 10 years. And he did jujitsu, but he wanted to get bigger. He wanted to put some weight on. He wanted to get stronger. And we said, okay, well, that means you're going to back off the jujitsu for some time. He said, okay. Well, after a couple months, that became really hard for him to do. I think he missed the jujitsu practice, and he wasn't really, the weight was getting heavier in the gym too. So there's kind of a combination of like heavier weight, and I'm not doing my practice as much, and I've put on more weight than I'd like because I really want to be a lightweight in jujitsu. He had a lot of conflicting things happening, right? When someone has too many conflicting events, like I want to get stronger, but I don't want to gain that much weight, and I don't want to lose my jiu-jitsu practice. And you need to make a decision. So he stopped the lifting and went back to jiu-jitsu. And this is fine. It wasn't right. It wasn't the right time for him. Maybe it will be in another couple of years, but at that time, he wasn't prepared to completely stop his jiu-jitsu training to focus on his lifting, even if that meant gaining a little bit of weight. So that can be a hard pill to swallow for some people, and it's okay though. But you have to be honest with yourself. Like, what's your goal right now? And it's okay if your goal changes, as you said. It's okay if the goal changes, but you kind of have to pick and choose. And there's no wrong choice. It's the choice that works for you and it's right for you. Yeah, when it comes to that. So But it's interesting to talk to this new client about that. Because I was like, okay, this is, he wants to keep lifting, but this is not a priority. It's a priority in the sense of he wants to make a difference in his other training. He wants to see a difference there, but he doesn't want to do something that's going to interfere with that. It's like, okay, this is gonna be a fun project.
Mhm.
This is fun. But that has to be that you have to address that with your coach. So if you're thinking of wanting to start a strength training program and you have an outside activity that takes up a lot of your time too, really find someone who can help you manage that training. Manage your training well so they understand what your priority is, because it will make for a better relationship between you and your coach, because the coach knows what your real goal is, and that will help keep you consistent, and keep you as a client too. I think that's about it as far as I wanted to kind of address. I don't know if we've ever talked about balancing training with other activities. I think we might have in another podcast, but within something
I feel
else.
like I have,
But I think it's an important discussion to have, because, whereas I have people come to the gym who just want to get stronger and this is what they do, they do have other outside activities. I mean, I hear at plenty of time, people hiking, people biking, people running, and they, helping them understand how to manage all those activities, helping people to understand if they're running, is their conditioning, when to run, right? When to bike, making sure that it's,
well,
yeah.
so what do you tell them?
Oh, I always tell them, if someone's really serious about running, let's say they have like long runs and short runs, not just kind of like a jogger who decides they're going to jog once or twice a week, but even that person, that they need to have, let's say the more serious runner, long runs on the weekends. So they're lifting, their strength training is during the week. Typically they want to have their longer runs on the weekends, and that usually does mesh with what their goals are. And then they have their shorter runs during the week, and trying to run after they lift, or trying to lift or run on an opposite day. So lift on Tuesday, run on Wednesday, lift again on Thursday. But that run needs to be maybe early in the morning on Wednesday, so that they have all that time to recover before their next training day on Thursday. If they have to run on a training day, run later, right? So train in the morning, run later in the afternoon. Just trying to give yourself some of that recovery time, and make sure it's one of your shorter runs. And then I would just say that to anybody who's kind of a casual jogger, same thing. Put your running on an opposite day or the same day after you've strength trained. And that usually works out really well for people, because I've seen it interfere with somebody's training when they run before. I think,
Well, so, but like, I mean, I think the thing is, whichever your priority is, like, that's what happens first.
Exactly. Well,
so if you have the reverse of that, where you have somebody where it's like you're talking about the 5 days a week of jujitsu, that would be the activity that should happen first. And then the lifting happens second. I would, and then if the lift doesn't go or whatever, that's not the priority. That's not the thing that you're really focused on making as much progress on.
Yeah, I mean, the lifting is, you can't do 4 days of strength training and 5 days of jiu-jitsu, right?
Not that many days in a week.
Not that many days a week. But you can't, so that's why.
If something gets doubled up, and if it gets doubled up, usually whatever the priority is would
well, yeah, unless it is like swimming or biking or running, because I've seen too many people do something outside the gym. I had a client who swims, and usually on Tuesday they do just an easy light swim. But there was one Tuesday where they decided to take a class, a stroke class, something they'd never done before.
A total wild card.
The next day, they had nothing in their upper body. Their pressing was a mess. And it's never been, I was shocked. I was like, what just happened? And it was like, did you swim yesterday? Yeah, really? That doesn't usually affect you. Oh, I took a class. Oh, you took a class. Oh, I should not have done that? Well, There was a time I think Martha did a long run on a Sunday, and she never does long runs on Sundays, like ever. But something happened in her schedule, so she had to do it. Monday, she had nothing. She had no legs. I've never seen her deadlift look as bad as I did. As it did. I was like, you've got to stop. You're making my eyes bleed. And she's like, I'm such a great coach. And she's like, I ran. I was like, what'd you do? What's wrong with you? She goes, I ran yesterday. I was like, oh. I said, Martha. She goes, I know, I know. So I mean, they learn, right? So you learn, but I mean, it never goes well. If somebody does something different than what they normally do, it does not go well.
Yeah, and that's the sort of thing too. Like we're talking with lifting, it's quantifiable. If somebody is swimming and they're quantifying it in terms of type of stroke, distance of stroke, or time or whatever, that's fine. Classes, when you do a class, that's just like catch as catch can. Like you don't ever know what the instructor is going to throw at you. So you don't know how that's going to affect you. But also, I mean, like, I guess in the situation with Martha, if she's like building up towards a race and then it's a season during which the running is the priority and then the lift suffers the next day, fair enough.
Right.
You prioritized your main thing for that time in your life. But it's like understanding that those two things can't necessarily.
No. And you've got to tell your coach. Because your coach then on the next day goes, yeah, go ahead. And then you go, why couldn't you do that triple?
Right, sure.
What the hell? Why that move so badly? Oh, you did what yesterday? Well, you should have told me. If you told me, we would have made some modifications here with your training. Like we need to know these things. You need to tell the person you're working with, by the way, I did a 24-hour bike race yesterday. And the trainer goes, and why are you here then? So it's like those things have to be thought out ahead of time, and they have to be voiced, to the person who is helping you, or else, you're going to get pushed to do something, and then who knows what could happen because you literally got no legs. Something popped in my head of somebody doing just that, like doing something, and I was watching them. Oh no, it wasn't that. It wasn't something. It was one of my dancers who was 11. And she's 5'4" now. Her parents are very tall. So she came in. I hadn't seen her for 3 weeks because it was her birthday and they went to New York, and then it was Memorial Day, and then she had her dance performance. So she came back after 3 weeks, and I'm looking at her and going, she looks different. She looks different. I couldn't figure out what it was. And we're trying to adjust the bar to figure out the right height for her. And I'm like, why are we having so much trouble with the bar? Then I watch her squat and my eyes start to bleed. And I'm like, did you grow? She goes, yes. She goes, yes, I grew an inch. I was like, God, I knew it because I was watching her and she was so wonky. She's like little baby gazelle trying to figure out this new body. And it's because she grew an inch. And now her squat, I mean, by the time she warmed up, it was looking like her squat again. But man, those first couple reps, I was just like, God, I hope nobody's watching this. She has been lifting for a time, and she knows how to squat. It was her body she was trying to figure out her body. Her body had grown another inch. Her legs are longer, and this squat was like all out of whack. And it was her trying to figure out this new, these new limbs. But it was so funny. I was like, did you grow? Yes, I did. So the fact that I knew that, because I'm looking at her saying, there's something going on with her, and something has to, okay, you're taller. And she's only going to get taller, of course, because she's only 11 right now. So she's going to have to navigate this new body every single time. So it's the same thing. It's like something's different, something's new, and you have to navigate this new way of moving. So yes, prioritizing, what your goal is. Is it running or swimming or jiu-jitsu? Is it strength training? And the two goals can change depending on, what's a priority for you at the time, what your needs are, where you are in your lifting or your training. But having your coach help you find that balance is very essential, so that you are not falling short in one direction. So, if anybody has thoughts about this, or would like to share their own story, or has questions about what we talked about today, feel free to always reach out to me or Rebecca. You can always reach me at Emily@5by3.com. And you can reach Rebecca at
at Cornerstone Strength Maryland @gmail.com.
We would love to hear from you. Happy to talk to you and answer questions. And if you've got a topic, as always, feel free to email us about a topic, or just message us on, on my Facebook page, or not Rebecca's Facebook page, my Facebook page. I'll share it with Rebecca. I think that's it. I don't know when we'll be back. I guess it depends on our schedules for the summer, because I'm sure you've got summer plans. Do you have summer vacation plans coming up soon?
Oh, yeah, this summer is so weird because when, the time that you're making summer plans, we just didn't know where anybody was going to be.
Sure.
Like Hannah had applied for an internship at the Smithsonian.
That's cool.
And a lot of that sort of stuff had fallen through, but we weren't sure if that was going to happen or not. Delia is graduating, so starting a new job, but we weren't sure which job or how much vacation or any of that stuff. Sadie's doing an internship down in Greenville, South Carolina. And so she finishes early, but doesn't have any time up until like the beginning of August. And then Felicia was sort of the other way around, where she had more time at the beginning of the summer, but then she's got to be back for soccer at the end of the summer. And
things change so quickly.
Finding a week. We did find 1 week. We found 1 week.
Amazing.
Where we go with do the cousins, aunts, uncles, grandparents down in Isle of Palms.
So we might be around for the summer, Rebecca and I, because I have no vacation plans either, because we never plan for vacation until
we usually do one in like September.
Yeah, but I don't know if we're doing that. I don't know what we're doing. We haven't talked about it too much. So, we'll figure it out as we go along. So we might be back sooner than later.
Yeah. There you go.
There we go. So look for
I feel like there's high probability of another podcast.
I think so. I think we'll probably do another one in June, and then probably July. Maybe we'll be off for July.
Oh, no, I think we're around for July.
Oh, my God, we're around for July? This will be a first for us. We got to start thinking of topics. Okay. Thanks, everybody, and have a great week. And again, if you've got any ideas or topics or questions for us, feel free to always contact us. We'd love to hear from you. Thanks, Rebecca.
Thank you, Emily.
Thanks, everybody. Have a great week. Bye.
Take care.
Thanks for listening to 5x3 Radio with Emily and Rebecca. If you like our show and want to know more about 5x3 training, please visit us at www.5, that's F-I-V-E, the letter X, the number 3.com. You can also find us on Facebook and Instagram. To learn more about Rebecca, please visit her website, cornerstonestrengthmaryland.com. Thanks for listening and have a great week.